the audacity to hope, the courage. At this pivotal moment, the National Civil Rights Museum remains committed to advancing the work of justice by preserving history and inspiring future generations. Our mission is to not only recount the stories of the past, but also to move history forward. It is in this spirit that we announce several transformative milestones. We are proud to share that the museum has recently acquired the rare Bayard Rustin collection. Rustin, a master strategist of the civil rights movement, exemplified the power of community through his work organizing the 1963 March on Washington and emphasized his civil and human rights work from 1968 to the present. This never-seen-before collection will debut in an exhibition opening in March 2025. It offers a profound opportunity to engage with the Rustin legacy of nonviolent activism, coalition building, and visionary leadership. We will also observe the 60th anniversary of the Selma March and the Voting Rights Act of 1965. These milestones celebrate the collective effort to secure the inalienable rights for all citizens and honor the grassroots community whose courage and determination mobilized an inevitable victory. Through events and programs, we will reflect on this enduring struggle and reaffirm our commitment to protecting and advancing voting rights. In summer 2025, we will reopen our Founders Park, a cherished space for reflection, education, and connection. The revitalized park will serve as a living tribute to those who laid the foundation for the struggle for equality and justice. In 2026, we will unveil the renovated Legacy Building, also known as the Boarding House, which will feature state-of-the-art exhibits and community spaces designed to inspire dialogue and action. This renewal underscores our commitment to ensuring the stories of the past resonate with the present and future. Dr. King's concept of the World House compels us to recognize our interconnectedness as global citizens. In his words, all inhabitants of the globe are now neighbors. As we witness the rise of divisive rhetoric and policies, the need to foster unity has never been more pressing. The World House is not merely an ideal, it is a blueprint for survival. By embracing our differences and working collaboratively, we can address the pressing issues of our time: climate change, systemic inequality, and social unrest, with the strength of a unified, compassionate global community. Today, as we rededicate ourselves to the ideals of the beloved community, we must act in our neighborhoods, our workplaces, and our world. The National Civil Rights Museum invites each of you to serve as ambassadors of Dr. King's vision by fostering collaboration, demonstrating strength and solidarity, and building bridges where walls once stood. Let us turn the tide against chaos with acts of courage, kindness, and justice. Together, we can advance the dream, not merely to honor the past, but to secure a future worthy of our highest ideals. Dr. King once reminded us, the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends toward justice. But it bends because of our collective effort, our unyielding resolve, and our shared commitment to love and justice. Let us leave here today determined to choose community over chaos, unity over division, and hope over despair. The work ahead is great, but together we can build the beloved community and the world house Dr. King envisioned. Join us in this mission, not just today, but every day. Let us move forward, hand in hand, to create a brighter, more just future for all. Thank you.
Just don't let the spin get you down. Things are moving fast. Hold on tight and you will last. Keep yourself respect, you're very bright. Get yourself in gear, keep your stride. Never mind your fears. Brighter days will soon be here. Take it from me, someday we'll all be free.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Ryan Jones, Director of History and Interpretation at the National Civil Rights Museum. I'm with the distinguished Dr. Hassan Kwame Jeffries from The Ohio State University. Thank you, Dr. Jeffries, for joining us for this chat for our upcoming Martin Luther King Jr. holiday in 2025.
Oh, it's great to be with you.
Great. So let's just jump right on into it. What was Dr. King most passionate about in his last few years of his life? So we're talking about post the Voting Rights Act of 1965. What do you think he would have wanted to accomplish by then?
Well, as we move into the final years of Dr. King's life, it's clear that he has shifted emphasis away from sort of social issues, away from politics, and focus explicitly on economics. Now, of course, politics and social aspects are all connected to economics, but economics become the center of his interest, and specifically fighting against poverty. He understood that this nation could not achieve all of its goals as long as people were still mired in poverty. He thought it was one of the great tragedies that the richest nation in the world still had people who did not know where their next meal was coming from, who did not have live in decent shelter. And so he felt eradicating poverty was key to moving this society forward. And so economics become the centerpiece of all of his organizing work in the last few years of his life.
Most definitely. And then when you start thinking about Dr. King's shifting of his philosophy, he comes and he runs into this rising Black Power movement. So the likes of those like Stokely Carmichael, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee takes a shift. How does Dr. King intermingle with these other young militants who have different philosophies but are still advocating for the same cause that he is?
Well, there has always been, conflict might be too strong a term, but there have always been differences in approach and tactics among those who were fighting for freedom. But the goal across the board has always been the same: to secure basic civil rights and human rights, to secure freedom. So, in that sense, they were operating from, they had the same mission, although they were operating from different playbooks. But Dr. King was very much understood sort of where these younger militants, civil rights, Black Power activists were coming from. Now, people often say, well, Dr. King was critical of Black Power. No, he said the term was politically problematic. Basically, he was like, you put Black and power together, you're going to scare white people, right? But he said, I understand where not only the sentiment is coming from, a frustration with the slow pace of progress, but he also understands the critique. So what Black Power brings to the table is a critique of systems and structures, right? Saying, look, if you want to, create freedom, if you want to lead the Black folk to freedom, then you have to change basic political systems and economic structures. Dr. King fundamentally understood that, but he felt the focus was more connected to hearts and minds. You got to change hearts and minds in order to get people on board with changing systems and structures. Black Power activists were like, to heck with hearts and minds. We're going to change these systems and structures and let the hearts and minds follow.
How was Dr. King able to navigate the political status quo to collaborate toward the higher goal of obtaining civil and human rights? What lessons can we learn about how he moved the mission forward and included allies from all walks of life?
Navigate, I think, in that question does a lot of work, because that's exactly what he had to do. He had to navigate waters that were quite treacherous, political waters that were quite treacherous. And at times he was very successful, and at other times he was unsuccessful. I mean, one of the things he had to navigate was with white liberal allies and outside the South. He was never really able to sort of successfully navigate the waters that were being stirred up by segregationists. So that's half the country, right? I mean, he was like, nah, that didn't work. Those appeals to moral consciousness in the South never materialized. He was never able to, the white moderate never materialized in the South. So in that sense, he was unable to successfully navigate those waters in terms of creating new allies, although he did survive them until he didn't. But the white liberals, right, sort of these good white folk, right, who he was supposed to be appealing to outside of the South, including Lyndon Johnson, he's able to sort of bring in allies and broaden the tent until he began to talk about things that affected the society as a whole and not just black folk. Right, when he began to talk about economic issues, when he began to talk about and offer a very strident critique of capitalism. He had always been critical of capitalism, but when that becomes front and center of his political discourse, then it becomes problematic. He does not successfully navigate the political waters on the left, on sort of the democratic left, liberal left, when it comes to the war in Vietnam. There, when he has that crisis of conscience and says, I can't be for nonviolence at home and be silent on violence overseas, when he comes out against the Vietnam War in April of 1967, then suddenly that was like dropping a bomb in those waters, because that boat begins to sink. So in that sense, he didn't success. He tried to navigate. He tried to let his sort of moral conscience guide him, but navigating those treacherous political waters, he was very unsuccessful. We look back at it now and say everyone was a fan of Dr. King, right? Why can't we all just be more like Dr. King in the way he was able to successfully bring everybody together? Well, that ain't never happened, right? I mean, there were moments where he was successful, but more often than not, in terms of bringing in folk who were in opposition to what he was standing for, he was unsuccessful. Didn't mean that he didn't continue to try. Didn't mean that he wasn't right. He just wasn't successful.
Uses this phrase, beloved, the beloved community. What examples do we see of the beloved community Dr. King referred to? And what can we do to better help realize this concept for future generations?
Well, the beloved community is an idea rather than a place. And so it's aspirational. How do we create a community? How do we create a society in which everyone bears a responsibility for everyone else? This idea that those of us with means are willing to help those without, are willing to go without to make sure that everyone has what they need. So it's an aspirational way of organizing and living in society, a way that is driven by love as opposed to hate, a way that a society that is committed to sharing as a resources as opposed to hoarding resources. And so, where do we see it? Again, we don't see it necessarily in a place. We see it in the actions of people. We see it in these organizations that existed then and exist now, benevolent societies, that people who come together to deal with or to provide assistance to those who are without homes, to provide assistance to those who are dealing with healthcare issues and can't afford the cost of healthcare. We see the beloved community in strangers coming together and not judging people by the assumptions that they make based upon their appearance or their religious beliefs or not, but saying, who are you? And I want to meet you. I want to engage with you. I want to interact with you based upon who you are and not based upon who I think you are. And so, Dr. King, one of the things that's so admirable about Dr. King is not only his commitment to change, but his commitment to people, right? And saying that, we literally are a society that's woven together. Our lives, our communities are connected. They're inextricably linked. And in order for all of us to thrive, then each of us has to have the opportunity to do the same. So this idea of, we can come together and build something greater than has ever existed is rooted in this idea of recognizing people's humanity and the humanity of people among those who you do not know personally, right? And if we're able to do that, and those examples that we see of people willing and caring to care for others, not just in times of crisis, but in times of calm, that's what Dr. King aspired for us to achieve.
How would you describe the world house that Dr. King talked about, and where do we go from here? We now live in a more global community with layers of connectivity. So what is it that we are missing to better understand what King meant then and its relevance now?
Yeah, the world house is a very powerful sort of metaphor that King was developing and sharing, at the time of his death, that he writes, of course, and where do we go from here? It's this idea, and this is kind of pre-environmental movement era. This idea that everyone on this planet, right, shares a house, right, and the house is Earth. We live together, right? The planet is our house, and two things that he was articulating. One, we got to take care of the house, right? We can't let the house burn. If the house burns, then we all burn. And so there's this sort of proto environmentalism in what he's saying about the space that we occupy, that is planet Earth. We have to take care of it. But he was also saying, listen, if you have to live in the house, you got to share, right? The only way to live comfortably, the only way to survive within the house that we're all forced to live to share, right, is to cooperate, is to work with one another, right, is to share resources. And so his he was moving beyond sort of the borders of the nation state, right? He's like, this house isn't just the United States. This house isn't just a Latin American country or European country. He's saying the house is Earth, and we are all occupants in it. And these are our different rooms, but we're still living under the same roof, and we need to cooperate if we are to enjoy our house, if we are to thrive in our house. That message, I think, is even more relevant today, especially in America, but also as it relates to the rightward shift in politics outside of America, in Europe in particular, and some Latin American countries, in which we're closing the doors to our room in our house. Those of us who have bigger, more well furnished or appointed rooms are not letting others in the house into the room, right? And what he King was like, no, 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 no. Like fine, we can respect our borders, and you have your privacy in your own rooms. I understand that, but this is also a communal space, right? And when we come together, we need to make sure that everybody has what they need, and rather than sort of refusing entry to those who need the warmth and protection of the shelter, right? We need to be welcoming them in to make sure that everybody provides. We're all residents of the same house. This is our dwelling, right? Let everyone be a part of this space that we occupy.
So important for today. And our final question, what do you think Dr. King would say to the vitriolic rhetoric that we see today, and what strategies and tactics are still useful for overcoming hate, fear, and division?
I think Dr. King today would be like, y'all still saying that same stuff? Right? I mean, the continuity between past and present. There's nothing today that people are saying, especially on the political right. Talking about, we're going to mass deportations and we're locking people up and all this other stuff, and all the hate fueled racism and sexism and xenophobia. People like, yeah, that sounds really familiar, right, to the world in which he grew up in, Jim Crow America. But then the world that he was leaving behind post Jim Crow 64, 65, that Black folk were still living in. We were making progress. We were making strides, changing immigration laws and the like, becoming more welcoming. But the power of racism as a political tool, Dr. King was very familiar with. It was used against him and as an activist, but it was used against Black folk. So Dr. King would be very familiar with it. But he also told us how to deal with it. He said, you counter hate with love. And that's just not rhetorical, right? I mean, there's real power in that, right? He's saying, listen, we cannot allow people to bring us down when thinking about sort of, the rhetoric and the vitriol revolving hate and violence and this, that, and the other. He said, that doesn't mean you roll over, right? That means you fight. Dr. King was a fighter first and foremost. He said, but you fight without losing your moral direction. You fight without losing your moral conscience. You don't fight the way they fight, right? Like, there is that, when they go low, they go high. He was like, when they go low, we go hard, right? I mean, that was Dr. King, but we go hard leaning into love. That's really powerful. That's something I have had to grow to appreciate, because I'm like, man, you want me to love? What is all this love? Love, love. Love is powerful. Love is powerful. Love is a recognition of the humanity of other people. right? And you never let anybody rob you of your recognition of the humanity of others. We may fundamentally disagree, even with those who hate us, but that doesn't mean we refuse to recognize their right to exist as human beings. Right now, that's critically important, and we certainly don't let anybody move us in a direction where we're going to not recognize the humanity of other people. So even when you lose these tough political races, right, you don't suddenly give up on your moral bearings, right, in order to achieve a political win, because the being on the right side of history is more important than any short-term win. And that was one of the key lessons I think that Dr. King leaves us with.
Thank you, Dr. Jeffries, is always diplomatically making it plain and simple for us and our following. Thank you for all out there, and hope everyone has a happy Martin Luther King Jr. holiday in January 2025. Thank you again.
Absolutely. Take care.
All right.
Hey baby, what you no good? I'm just getting back, but you knew I would. War is hell, when will it end? When will people start getting together again? Are things really getting better, like the newspaper said? What else is new, my friend, besides what I read? Can't find no work, can't find no job, my friend. Money is tighter than it's ever been. Say, man, I just don't understand what's going on across this land. Oh, what's happening, brother? Yeah. What's happening? What's happening, my man? Are they still getting down where we used to go and dance? Will our ball club win the pennant? Do you think they have a chance? And tell me, friend, how in the world have you been? Tell me what's out, I wanna know what's in. What's the deal, man? What's the deal? What's happening, brother? Oh, what's happening, brother? What's been shaking up and down the line? I wanna know. Sounds like we're behind the time. Woo.
Greetings, I'm Vida Ajamu. I serve as Chief DEI Programs and Community Engagement Officer at the National Civil Rights Museum, located at the historic Lorraine Motel in Memphis, Tennessee. Thank you for joining us as we celebrate Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., a man whose vision of justice, equality, and community has shaped our nation's conscience. Today, we celebrate not just a holiday, but a day of service, a day to reflect, act, and commit ourselves to the ideals Dr. King advocated for. Dr. King once said, "Life's most persistent and urgent question is, what are you doing for others? Those words serve as a call to action for each of us, reminding us that service to our community is not just an act of kindness, but a moral obligation. When we serve, we strengthen the bonds that connect us, foster understanding, and create the foundation for a more just and equitable society. At the National Civil Rights Museum, we are deeply committed to carrying forward Dr. King's legacy of service through our King Day programming. We aim to inspire and empower individuals to take meaningful action in their communities. This year, we've collaborated with local and national partners to offer opportunities for reflection, education, and hands-on service, from touring the museum, volunteer opportunities, providing educational resources and vaccinations, to food and blood donation drives. Our goal is to ensure that this day resonates with the power of collective action. Service is a bridge that connects our shared humanity. Let today be a reminder that we all have the power to make a difference. By serving, we honor Dr. King's dream, not just with words, but with deeds. Thank you for joining us in this effort to create a brighter, more inclusive future. Remember, together we can turn the dream into a reality. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Beverly Nathaniel Alexander, and I am delighted to have been invited to give my views on why volunteering for the National Civil Rights Museum is important. I have been volunteering here for a long time, and it has been a wonderful, wonderful experience because it allows me to have a platform to be reminded of the history that I know, to remind me of the history that maybe I've forgotten, and also enlightens me to learn new things. My family instilled the benefit of paying forward at an early age. And so when I had children, I extended that same leaf to them. So they know that paying it forward and volunteering is very, very important. Volunteering is about commitment, it's about community, it's about service to others. And that's why it's important, I think, for everyone to at least one time volunteer at the National Civil Rights Museum. I am pleased because it allows me to develop authentic partnerships with the staff as well as the volunteer committee that I serve on. It is a wonderful opportunity because it's growing me up, as my grandmother would say. It's learning me things, as my grandmother would say. So I invite others that's out there, come to the Civil Rights Museum. This is a wonderful, magnificent facility where you will learn, where you will meet new people, where you will grow. So I am pleased that I have the opportunity to say volunteering for the National Civil Rights Museum is a wonderful, wonderful opportunity. I am delighted to say that I am a member as well as a volunteer. Thank you so much.
I'm Joe Cowles, and this is my wife, Betty Cowles. We have been volunteering at the museum for several years. One day we were sitting around waiting on thinking about King's Day, and we said, let's go out and volunteer for a little while. We came out for 2 hours, supposedly. We stayed for the whole time, and we've been volunteering at least over 20 years at the museum on King's Day. It's very important that we do the community services. And I enjoy it because I like to see the faces of the people when they come in to view the Civil Rights Museum.
Well, as he said, I'm Betty, his wife, and I've been here
Basically, since it opened, I've been in and out volunteering at the museum. And the reason why I volunteer, there are two reasons really. One is because a museum of this magnitude, there's a lot of work to be done. And the regular staff can't do all of the work. So I volunteer to help the staff. And my other reason is that I enjoy meeting people. I meet people from all over the world, all over this country, and it is fun to see where these people have come from. And then to know that we have a lot of people in Memphis who still haven't been here, but we have a lot of people from other parts of the world who come to visit our museum. And it is one heck of a place. If you haven't been here, you really need to come. I enjoy volunteering, and I especially enjoy volunteering with my husband.
On King's Day, we volunteer. Weather has been changeable, and but just like the weatherman, just like not the weatherman, the postman. Rain, shine, sleet, or snow, we're gonna be here because I enjoy it, and we have a great time, and I love it.
My name is Demetrius Moore. I've been volunteering here at the Civil Rights Museum since 2001. I feel it's important to give back to my community by serving here at the Civil Rights Museum because diversity and inclusion is very, very important to our culture, especially at this time, this day and age where people are fighting hard to erase history. So being able to come out and volunteer and give the people, the community, an opportunity to see this wonderful museum that kind of captures our culture and our past, the plight of African Americans and just civil rights in general through time is very, very important to me. So just having that opportunity to come, to serve, to see the people who want to be enriched and educated by it is just so fulfilling to me. So for me, this is very, very important for me and my family. I have myself, my wife, my kids, we all come and we volunteer and we have such a great time. It is so fulfilling to see how the community embraces this institution. Dr. Martin Luther King is a very, very powerful individual for our time. He is what he stands for and what he has meant to our culture has been paramount, and we'd like to see that going forward. In this day and age, things are ever changing. Things are better, things are getting better, but we still have a long fight to go. Diversity is something that we will probably continue to be fighting for the next, foreseeable future. So it's important to us to continue to serve and to just be available to ensure that people understand what we are fighting for.
Where do we go from here? 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 This may very well be the most advanced era in human history, at least in terms of technology and wealth. But what about our health as a society? Are we well? Are we honest in the stories that we tell about ourselves? Does the state of our union show that our values are sincere? And if not, Where do we go from here? To answer that, let's take a look back at the legacy of the leader for whom this holiday is named. And let's consider the fact that Martin Luther King Jr. was slain just months before he planned to lead the Poor People's Campaign. And his goal was to unify people of all races who are exploited for financial gain. In his latter days, Dr. King's dream went far beyond people of different skin tones just getting along. He knew that we couldn't truly be free without justice for those who have the least. And today, as the middle class continues to disappear, when the minimum wage hasn't been raised in 15 years, my people, where do we go from here? In a time of unprecedented prosperity, how is it that so many still go without their basic needs? How many of us are in debt from student loans and corporate greed? How many are overworked and underpaid, living in constant stress, in a rat race, trying our best to outrun inequality, only to end up depleted and depressed? As prices inflate and wages stagnate, as more and more people succumb to hopelessness or rage, we are reminded that one of the deadliest sins of this age is hoarding wealth instead of paying people a thriving wage. In the face of injustice so severe, where do we go from here? Dr. King advised that our greater power resides above racial, religious, and political divides. Beyond fighting for scraps and trying to adapt to a twisted system, see, there's a deeper wisdom, a wisdom that reverberates across generations of the human race. This wisdom continues to rise despite the distractions and lies. It shines brightest when we know that no matter whether our politics lean left or right, raising the global quality of life is one place where we can all unite. In some of Dr. King's final words to this world, his focus had clearly shifted. Racial integration alone was not sufficient because people of all races were still struggling under the weight of policies designed to make poverty a permanent state. That is economic injustice. It crosses national borders and racial lines, and since that time, the wealth gap has only widened. Now the cost of going to college, buying a home, raising a family has made the American dream even more of a fantasy. Dr. King worked tirelessly to end segregation, but in the midst of hard-won success, he said, I feel I may have integrated my people into a burning house. This house is one where people's American dreams too often go up in flames, simply so that the status quo can be maintained. There's a culture of corruption designed to wear us down, but instead of giving up and giving in to apathy or despair, Dr. King chose to prepare to peacefully and strategically fight back. When he asks, where do we go from here? He also offered an answer. We keep doing the work, just now with more wisdom. We invest first in ourselves, doing all we can to build healthy families and communities. And as we strengthen our own, we build alliances with other communities who are willing to work together with us in this fight to secure our economic rights. Now, this ain't a fight that'll be won overnight. This is a fight that requires commitment. This is a fight that crosses generations, and this is a fight that requires us to heal as individuals, as families, as communities, as a nation. And it requires that freedom work become the rule, not the exception, because liberty and justice for all requires communal protection. And truly the prayer embedded in this poem is that activism becomes the social norm instead of just a show that we post and perform. Our resistance can take many forms. This revolution evolves through actions big and small. From loud protests in the streets to quiet, private conversations, we organize to obtain and enforce legislation. We build our own businesses and support fellow entrepreneurs, and we cultivate a culture of labor unionization. And our youth, we give our youth an education of real world skills, skills that allow them to heal and build. We nourish their minds instead of wasting their time. We create art that elevates. We use science to help us heal. We honor the efforts of our everyday heroes. And we choose leaders who serve the needs of the people, not their egos. In the words of Shirley Chisholm, unbossed and unbought, willing to heed the wisdom that time tells and history has taught. We speak our minds, not just online, but also at the polls, with politics rooted in compassion instead of fear and control. When workers strike, when the public boycotts, when we make the most of what we've got, we at least got a shot at justice. And even when a battle is won, we are still challenged to stand guard. When the fervor dies down, when our cause is no longer trending, see, that's when the work is just beginning. Victories must be protected, and liberation is a lifestyle. My fellow human beings, we stand at a crossroads. Will we choose community, or will we descend further into chaos? Will we give up, or will we persevere? Where do we go from here? Will we stay in pursuit of King's less publicized dream? His dream that his own country would abolish poverty. His dream that we'd wake up and see the eradication of economic inequality as an international responsibility. He spoke of this dream in his speeches, essays, and books, but somehow this dream is too often overlooked or replaced with an emphasis on race. But King left us with so much more to explore, and today we stand at that frontier. Where do we go from here? Will we tune out the propaganda that they call news? Will we reject the hate that's been repackaged as faith? Will we come together on one accord to make the American dream something that every human being can afford? Will we put our difference aside long enough to see that our only choice is between chaos and community? Not Republicans versus Democrats, not the liberal left versus the radical right, not men versus women, black versus white, queer versus straight, or any other excuse we use to discriminate. Where do we go from here? Chaos or community? May we be ever mindful of the path we take, because the quality of our lives, the future of our world, and the health of our planet are all at stake. Where do we go from here? Where do we go from here? Yeah. Where do we go from here? Where do we go? 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 Where do we go?
On this day, I imagine that many of us are thinking a lot about democracy and community on many levels. I am reflecting on the concept Bishop Desmond Tutu taught us, Ubuntu. We are more of who we are individually by who we are collectively. That I have been formed and created in the same degree that my neighbor has been as well. So here we are, John A. Powell, leader of the UC Berkeley Othering and Belonging Institute, reminds us of the critical human need to belong as core essential to humanity's ability to thrive together. Netflix documentary Join or Die features legendary social scientist Robert Putnam, who cautions us of the crucial and critical importance of our community engagement to the health and sustainability to us as a democracy. I give these references because as I think of today, and when I was asked to share in where do we go from here, I hold tension in the reality of how our nation is once again divided, how it is front and center for us, how we have grown more focused on individuality and our own personal needs, how the conveniences of life that we believed were going to make life easier for us, cell phones, apps, online shopping, all of those conveniences of late, in my opinion, have had a negative impact on making things easier for us to not have to connect nor consider what is best for all of us collectively. And the consequences of that is that those who promote fear tap into our basic need and challenge us around how we belong and how we can be manipulated to see each other as enemies. It's obvious that fear of not belonging, the fear of being othered, has created a movement, new, fresh among us, where we believe our individual needs are greater than and more important than our collective needs. That's the great chasm that I believe we are facing right now and that we will continue to be forced to face this year. It is the prophetic call of the ages to remember that the we is always stronger than the me. We will be required and challenged to think, act, and engage. And when I say we, I don't mean we, where we vilify and negate anyone whose thoughts, actions, and beliefs are different from my own. Instead, we will be challenged in this season to intentionally reach out, to hear beyond fear, to engage, as my friend Reverend Joshua Narcisse recently referred to as the messy conversations that help us to create belonging, which is different from membership, where we all think and act the same. But belonging is the liberating gift of understanding that the whole of who we are is only possible because of the diversity and variety of the unique gifts of difference. I use puzzles as an illustration. Partly because the only way to see the full image of a puzzle is to see the individual pieces and how they are necessary to come together to create the whole. No piece is the same, and they all have to fit together. Reverend Floridia of my beloved church once preached a sermon with an illustration about frogs and the many, many different varieties of frogs God created. She used that image to remind us of how much creation is a reflection of the limitless gift of difference and diversity that is a part of our world. And that to honor that is to encourage us to see each of us as equally important to the whole of us. Let's be clear, to quote essayist and novelist Robert Jones Jr., we can agree to disagree and still love each other, unless your disagreement is rooted in my oppression and denial of my humanity and right to exist. The challenge we face today will be to continue to confront collectively any space and place where disagreements are rooted in oppression and the denial of each of our humanity and right to exist. That is our work ahead. But it will begin with what we learned in the Memphis Interfaith Coalition of Action and Hope as shared interest. I therefore invite and indeed challenge you to reach beyond your own circle of community, to be willing to form messy communities of conversation. The Women's Council of Memphis did it decades ago. You are challenged to explore places that take you out of your comfort zone. In rural communities that on the surface appear the complete antithesis of what urban communities look like, Micah is looking to find common ground, to begin to work for the common good, and to continue to build justice and equity for all. Will it be easy? No. Is it necessary? More than necessary. It will be mandatory. Others who came before us laid the foundation and set the example. Now it is our time to go and do likewise.
why we treat each other in this way. Taking up the time with the silly, silly games we play. We got our love, and no matter how it's said and done, oh, oh, we are one. No matter what we do, we are one. God will see us through, and that's the way it is. Whoa, hey. Sometimes I feel that we're trying to make each other mad. I don't know why. Things we do and the way we make each other sad. We got so much, we could all be having so much fun. Whoa, oh, oh, we are one. Right from the very start, deep down in my heart, and that's the way it is. Whoa, we are one. Come on. No matter what we do,